So welcome to the representatives of the World Press. Let me just shortly introduce. We have here, I'm starting on my far left, Dr. Naoki Okamura. He is the president of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Then we have Professor Jean-Jacques Dordain. He is the Director General of the European Space Agency. Next to him is Charles Bolden. He is the Administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Then we have a representative of our host here, General Walter Natinchik, President of the Canadian Space Agency. We are still waiting for Dr. Radhakrishnan, but we are lucky to have here with us Dr. Francisco Mendieta Jimenez. He is the Director General of the Mexican Space Agency. So this is the persons you can address. Please ask your questions, identify yourselves and the medium you're working for. Please. The press conference is open. So we start right here.
Hi, Jeff Fountain, Space News. This is a question for European and Canadian panelists on the stage. We heard in the panel session a little while ago from the Japanese representative about their plans for making a decision on extending the International Space Station beyond 2020. Can you comment on the decision-making process in your countries in terms of making a decision on the ISS extension?
On the agenda of the next council at ministerial level, which will take place in December, we have number one, the funding of our contribution to the International Space Station, and that is on the agenda because, as you know, we have still to get the funding to complete our contribution to the space station until 2020. So that is number one. Number two, we are preparing some principal decision for what's next after 2020. But there will not be any funding commitment. The member states will be invited to give their views on what's after 2020. So you have to make a clear distinction between money, which is for me the most important thing, because principles without money are principles. So the money is for the exploitation until 2020. And number two, there will be some principles on what's next beyond 2020.
From a Canadian standpoint, we're pretty fortunate that in 2012, Government of Canada gave us both the policy and the funding to carry us right out to 2020. So right now, just to be clear, our focus is to maximize the use of the International Space Station from a life sciences standpoint, working very closely not only with NASA but with the rest of the partners on the International Space Station. And then we will have a look at the entire value proposition when we put a case before Government of Canada.
Thank you very much. The next question was here. Okay.
Peter DeSelting, Space News. Two questions. One for Mr. Okamura. On maintaining Kibu, expensive. Have you found out a way to cut costs of maintenance? Because as you said this morning, that's one of the things that is preventing you from deciding right now beyond 2020. And for either Mr. Natinchik, I don't know if this is out of your bailiwick or not, but there was a question this morning about visas. What was the stick about getting visas for Chinese and Russian participants here? Was this a Ukraine type of thing? Was this something else going on? Could you enlighten us?
Thank you for your question. In fact, in Japan, we are always trying to reduce the cost of operation of Cuba year by year. In fact, you see the money we spend in Cuba was reduced year by year. So that's why you see, but still we need a fairly lot of money as compared with other space technologies. In this sense, so we have to reduce money and produce more effective product by using Cuba. Thank you.
Yeah, with regard to visas, I'm not the right guy, and I don't have the information because our foreign affairs folks actually do that kind of work in terms of receiving applications, those kinds of things. So frankly, I do not know the answer to your question. Yeah, and again, the Space Agency is enabling CASI and the organizing committee, but in terms of the visas, we received notes just like in the last 48 hours that there were issues, but we had no advance notice with that regard.
Yeah, Bill Jones from Executive Intelligence Review. I'd like to ask a question of Dr. Jimenez regarding the Latin American cooperation, which you talked about in the plenary. Latin America, of course, had a long history in trying to come into space over the last 30 years or so. Geopolitics and economics got in the way in many respects, but the motion is ongoing now. And as you indicated, there's an attempt to bring the agencies together. And I was wondering if you give any more details about meetings that are being planned. I also have heard that also within NASA, there have been attempts also to bring some of the Latin American agencies together in some form of cooperation, either from private individuals or maybe from parts of the agency. I was wondering if you could comment on that, Dr. Jimenez, and maybe Administrator Bolden would want to say something as well.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, over there. No. This lady first.
Okay, of course, Mexican Space is a new organization, and as soon as we were created, we wanted to network, of course, with our natural partner, the US, Canada, and then with the Latin American countries. We organized a meeting, the first meeting in Bogota, at the end of last year, with the participation of the International Academy of Astronautics, and we gathered together 8 representatives from Latin American agencies or similar institutions. We want to balance the two forces. One is capacity building in our countries, and in the other way is providing solutions. And in the past, these two worlds have been not necessarily intersection. But now, in every project that we will start, of course, we will be trying to develop systems, solution networks, programs with this vision, not only provide a solution, but in the networking, in the collaboration with developing countries, try to attract them more technology transfer, training, even production transfer to our countries. We share common challenges, environmental, natural disasters, energy production issues that can be tackled from space, and of course we can work together toward these goals. Of course, we are involving, we are inviting not only the leading countries like Brazil, Argentina, but also the countries in the Caribbean that are willing to use space products for their challenges. And also the dominant aspect is capacity building, attracting students, trying to reorient or orient university courses towards space, and of course having trying to present an interest in several niche of opportunities that we can make conversation with developing countries, because we need a very special niche like radar for cloudy environments, or very special sensors for disease spreading or other epidemiological things. Then our idea is to gather together, to share common views, and to try to have common ground. This is not easy because, for example, in Mexico we are very concerned with the new energy exploitation in deep sea, for example, or natural disasters. For example, Brazil is very interested in the Amazonas. Argentina has very important interest in the Andean Cordillera and even the Antarctica. And the idea is to have our collective imagination to put together a common program in order to discuss with developing countries, to share and go beyond a buy and sell scenario, try to make a real win-win international alliances between developed and developing countries.
Just very simply, NASA is always trying to enhance the collaboration that we have with our partners in Central and South America, Mexico, Central and South America. Some of you may be familiar with Aquarius SAC-D, probably the most high-profile collaboration with Argentina. I want to say we flew 2 years ago, and it now, as a result of that collaboration, we have mapped the oceans of the world and their salt content. We do astrobiology with Brazil and Chile. We fly our Arctic ice bridge or Antarctic ice bridge out of bases in Chile. We have collaborations with astronomers and astrobiologists up in the Atacama Desert in Chile. So quite a bit of work, and we are right now trying to facilitate a visit. It'll be my first visit to Mexico sometime next year in 2015.
Thank you. The next question was here. Please use the microphone next to you. Yep.
I take that one. Jacqueline Murre, space journalist from Germany. I also have a follow-up question to the visa issue. In case it turns out that the delegates from China and Russia didn't get a visa for reasons you can challenge, do you have tools or mechanism to complain or to challenge that situation? And related to that, second question, if the political situation is interfering into your work, how do you deal with it? Because I think about Washington in January, which had a very hopeful beginning in international cooperation efforts. You were there, you were talking about international cooperation in full swing. Then we had the sanctions from the State Department in April. Now we have the situation here that 2 leading space nations are missing. So how does political decision interfere into your work, and how do you intend to resolve this situation? So, or does it mean anything to you? Can you work around it, or is it an issue for your work?
I think that we are absolutely consistent, certainly from a Canadian perspective, and I would argue my colleagues as well, that space requires collaboration and cooperation across the community. And certainly again, the best testament of that, the International Space Station, where all the partner nations need to work together each and every day for the success of that vital mission. And that's the reality. And certainly from a Canadian perspective, I have a total flexibility to enable the mission of that International Space Station with all the partners. Beyond that, it's a case-by-case basis based upon the geostrategic environment that we face, to be absolutely honest with you. And as I mentioned to the gentleman up here before, with regard to the visa issues, I was just notified about 48 hours ago that there was a visa issue, but the lead with that is with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, who are working that both in capitals and in Ottawa as well.
From the standpoint of can we work given the political strains, yes. I would ask you to look at the International Space Station. You know, if you are able to isolate what's going on down here on Earth and pretend that you don't know anything's happening, you would not know by looking at launches, recoveries, operations on the International Space Station, because that still continues to go. When you listen to the crews, in their own way, they make pleas with those of us down here on Earth to try to put the politics aside, but that's, we do have to deal with the realities of politics and diplomacy. In terms of China, we have an active relationship with the Chinese Academy of Science in 2 areas of science, because the prohibition is mostly aimed at human spaceflight. So our prohibition has not been changed. We don't collaborate or cooperate with them there, but that does not stop efforts in the area of science, and we're even hoping aeronautics in the near future.
Please.
Hi, it's Frank Mooring with Aviation Week. For Monsieur Dordain, I was interested in what you said about getting to the future faster. The next step beyond, the next foreseeable step, I think, beyond the space station is probably NASA's lunar orbit objective, the distant retrograde orbit with the Orion capsule. Money aside, I know that's hard, but would you prefer to see humanity take its next step into some sort of orbital destination like that, or to return to the surface of the moon as the very next step beyond the space station?
Okay, first of all, we should be together around the moon, because Charlie was mentioning that the European service module will be together with Orion. So this will be the first time that NASA and ESA will go around the moon together. That is number one. Number two, as I said, I think that I am convinced, but that it's a personal conviction that
is the blue jacket.
will go to the surface of the moon as well as it will go to the surface of Mars. That I have no doubt on that. I am sure that we should go there together. But together does not mean, as I said in my speech, all together. Because some of the partners, they prefer the moon, others prefer Mars, others they prefer asteroids or whatever, but that it's not a problem. I think that that is exploration. And we must have a flexible approach where a group of partners can go together to the moon, can go together to Mars, can continue in low Earth orbit, because I am convinced that there is also a future for low Earth orbit. We cannot say we shall have stayed on low Earth orbit for 30 years and after it's over. I think that, but we must have, for me, the cooperation must be open to any partner. There is no reason to have a restricted number of partners, but among all these partners, I think that we have to have projects with group of partners. This is what we call optional programs in ESA. As I said, we are not asking all member states of ESA to go, all of them together to one program or to another program. They just select the ones who are interesting for them. So to be more precise, we shall be together with NASA around the moon with the European service module. For the time being, let's say the focus in the exploration program of ESA is Mars and ISS. It's clear, and that I have clear instructions from member states, but does not prevent to contribute to other missions according to opportunities or according to interest of the European, of the ESA member states. And for me, this is the only way to go for exploration. If we are waiting to have everybody agreeing on one destination, it can take another century. And I know that the moon is still there for 5 million years, but I think that we have much better to do just to talk and select all together the same destination. No use to have the same destination.
Okay. The next question is here. Elena? Oh, yeah.
Mark Boucher from SpaceRef for General Natitchin. I have 3 questions for you. One is, you've been working on the long-term space plan, and I was wondering if it's been finished and submitted to government, and when we might see it publicly. Number 2, as part of the aerospace review, one of the recommendations was the creation of a Canadian Space Advisory Council. The last time I checked, the Advisory Council was under discussion, but hadn't been finalized and hadn't been released. Has that changed yet? And then the last question, Canada was to have signed a cooperative agreement with Israel, and I was told that it might be today. Did that occur, and if so, will we see the terms of the MOU? Thank you.
Thanks for those very comprehensive 3 questions. First, there was a study done of the Canadian aerospace and space sector done about a year and a half ago, led by the former minister David Emerson. Came up with 2 volumes of reports and a number of recommendations. And so Vol 2 was the space volume, and it laid out a number of recommendations. In response to that, the Canadian Space Agency, with the rest of the government, developed the Space Policy Framework, which, as I kind of articulated on the stage earlier today, kind of lays out the future of our space program from a principle standpoint, but also areas of action. And there were basically 3 key areas of action. One is commercialization, the other is space exploration, and the last one was research and development on a foundation of stewardship and accountability. Really, that lays out what government has articulated in terms of the foundations of moving forward. In addition to that, we provided to government what is called an investment plan. And that is a government document. A lot of work went into it, which articulated exactly how the Canadian Space Agency would spend all of its funds, all of its resources over the next 5 years. And kind of lays out some of the main projects that you're well aware of, whether it be the 2 main projects, that is maintaining the partnership with the International Space Station, the investment into the 3rd generation of RadarSat Constellation, our RCM, which will launch in 2018. We moved through our final contribution to the James Webb Telescope, and saw that down at Goddard Space Center, a great contribution down there, as well as the asteroid return mission OSIRIS-REx, and again, the last piece of the programmatics there. And then with our French colleagues, CNES, with NASA, the Surface Water and Oceanographic Topography Project. Keeping in mind, I couldn't say any of that a year ago when I started this job, so I tell you what. Anyway, all of those were the main features, the main projects in the investment plan. The rest of the stuff in the investment plan is all the machinery stuff on how we manage programs and projects, risk management, and so on. And so that is the investment plan with the Space Policy Framework. The second question you had is with the Space Advisory Council. We're working with the rest of government with regard to their nomination process, trying to find the right fit in order to achieve one of the recommendations from the Emerson report, which was to have a Space Advisory Council who would advise Minister of Industry, Minister Moore, who was here this morning, as well as the Government of Canada. And so that nomination process is ongoing. I do not know when an announcement will be made on the selection or the announcement of members of that council. And your third question was with regard to the Canadian-Israeli Memorandum of Understanding. And just so you're aware, this is really an extension of a Memorandum of Understanding that was signed off in 2005 and really carrying on the cooperation between Canada and Israel. And we approved that or signed that this morning. And I'm not sure in terms of the terms of reference, but I ask you to ask my team afterwards. Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you. I'm Irene Klotz with Reuters and Discovery Channel. For Professor Dordan, could you tell us, first of all, how much money that ESA is being asked to supply for ISS operations through 2020? And also beyond that, does the possibility of stations operated by China or privately operated stations like Bigelow Aerospace's concepts, do you think that that's going to play a factor at all in ESA's decision about whether to continue with ISS or look elsewhere, perhaps something even less expensive? Thanks.
Okay, number one, to your question, the amount of money which is
You're next.
requested from member states until 2020 is 1 billion euros. And but the member states are dividing that in two slices, and in December this year we are asking for 800 million euros because the second slice is depending on the fact that we continue or not beyond 2020, and this is the reason why they are leaving some flexibility to be able to take the material decision, if I may say that, of extending the contribution of ESA to the space station beyond 2020, to have that decision being in 2016. So this is for the amount of money. Number two, I would not like to give the impression that we are just continuing the operations of space station business as usual. We have already reduced a lot the operation cost of the space station. And industry has accepted to reduce a lot their expenses to operate the space station by a factor of 30%. Taking into account the learning process, because the more you are operating the space station, the more you are able to simplify the way you are operating. So there is already a significant decrease of the cost. That's number one. Number two, the other big change which has happened is that we are not paying anymore our contribution to the common operation cost in terms of kilos to the space station, which we have done with the 5 ATV, which have been now all launched. But as you know, member states have decided to stop the production of ATV and not to pay anymore our share of common operation cost in terms of kilos, but to pay that with the European service module to the Orion capsule, which is a totally different way to pay our common operation cost, because it's research and development, number one, and number two, it prepares beyond already 2020, because the European service module to Orion is not for the low Earth orbit, it's for beyond low Earth orbit. So just to say that we are obviously always looking to reduce our costs, which we have done. If there is still a possibility to reduce more, we shall look at that. And number two, the way we are working with NASA through a barter agreement is certainly the best way also to take the best benefit of our contribution to the space station, not only in using the space station, but it also preparing the future. Because again, the European Space Module service module is not related to the ISS, is related to exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
Thank you. Next one.
Marcia Smith, spacepolicyonline.com. And my question has a bit to do with ISS utilization and also with how Mexico might decide to work with ISS. NASA has been highlighting recently that it's determined that ISS is very useful for Earth sciences payloads, for example, even though that was not really considered in the past. So as ESA and Canada are trying to explain to their populace and their governments the utility of ISS, are you looking at those kind of innovative ways of using space station not just for life sciences research, but for other kinds of research that you hadn't thought of in the past? And for Mexico, I know that ISS is being used as a platform for launching CubeSats. and nanosats, and I know that some Latin American countries have done that. Is Mexico considering that, and do you have any cooperative agreements to sort of kickstart some of your research by launching nanosats from the space station?
Okay, so maybe quickly, for the ESA member states, the space station has three main interests and benefits. Number one, it's a laboratory, and it's a laboratory to make science, but also to make technology. And it's not only science that we are doing, we are testing a lot of technologies. For example, the automated identification system which are now used for ship identification has been tested first to the space station. So we are testing, we are not only doing science, but also to make technology. So it's a laboratory. We are using the three characteristics of space environment. It's microgravity, it's vacuum, and it's attitude. And we have to, that we are doing that. The second interest and benefit, it's a fantastic test bed for international cooperation. We are learning a lot on board the space station. And we have learned a lot. And I can tell you that working with NASA is different from working with Roscosmos, and we have learned a lot in the type of cooperation that we can have with the different partners. By the way, coming back to what Charlie was saying, I recall that the ATV make a rendezvous and docking with the Russian part of the space station. So just to say that we are learning a lot in terms of how to cooperate together. That it's number two. And number three, the space station is a test bed for exploration beyond low Earth orbit. And as I have underlined already, the European service module that we are developing in the framework of the International Space Station program is a barter element which is preparing the exploration beyond low Earth orbit, because this is to go beyond low Earth orbit. So this is the three benefits that that the member states are taking into account to justify their contribution and to continue to use the space station. And I am convinced that these three benefits are certainly the three most important benefits. I would like to add another benefit. This is the astronauts and their attractiveness to young generation. As I said to the council recently in ESA, I read about ESA in the newspaper only in three occasions. Number one, when we are making a first in the world, making a rendezvous with a comet. Number two, when we are launching astronauts, and number three, when we have problems. And this is the three only occasions where the newspapers are talking about ESA. Meaning that astronauts are one of the three reasons to have ESA on the front page of newspapers, because the astronauts are very important ambassadors and very important persons to attract the young generation. It's fantastic today, the fact that we have Alexander Gerst on board is a fantastic promotion of what we are doing in space. And for all the children in Germany, this is very important. And I am sure that when Samantha Cristoforetti will be on board, it will be a fantastic also event for the young children, especially in Italy. So this is all the good reasons for the member states to continue to contribute to the space station.
Can I just echo the comments by Jean-Jacques Dordain from a Canadian standpoint? If you walk into the coffee shop here in town and ask about space, they'll tell you about the fellow who gave us that great lecture this morning. Or they'll talk about Apollo missions and what great things that they did back then. But from our perspective, I think the only limitation in terms of the utilization of the ISS is our own imaginations. And the challenge is to go out there across our nation at least and find those experiments that we can get up there and assist in how we move forward. From a Canadian standpoint, life sciences is a priority. And to be able to see things like the microflow diagnostic instrument that was up there, production out of the city of via the Quebec and the Institut Optique National there, INO, did a tremendous job, and we're moving down in that path. But also when I go off to the University of Guelph, which is renowned for its agricultural program, the fact that they launch various seed experiments like Tomato Sphere, which you probably heard of up there. It's how do you broaden the nature of the science that we can do up on ISS? So again, I think imagination is our only limitation.
Okay.
My name is David Todd. I'm with the British Interplanetary Society Spaceflight Magazine.
We had one more response to Marcia.
Yeah, sorry. The Mexican perspective about CubeSat, of course we are developing this technology just for capacity building, but targeting, as I said before, the niche Mexican, particularly life sciences and material sciences. Many of them in collaboration with NASA Ames Research Center. And of course, we are considering the possibility of launching from the ISS. We have been starting only conversation with people, particularly through the intervention of the Mexican-American astronaut, Jose Hernandez, who is very active in this field. This will not be the first time. You remember when the first Mexican astronaut, Neri, in the space shuttle, he developed several experiments in life sciences and material sciences. And that's very important for us, not only for the scientific return of the experiment, but the inspiration and the multiplicative effect that it will have, and it is already having in inspiration generation of Mexican. But of course that is on our roadmap, trying to put together a position to continue collaboration through this fantastic possibility of launching from the ISS. Of course, with all the procedures, even we are starting our program, we are already considering this sustainability, end-of-life procedures and all that.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is David Todd. I represent the British Interplanetary Society Spaceflight Magazine and Seradata.com. My question is to Major General Bolden. Specifically, you mentioned about the two winners of the commercial crew contract. My question relates to Dream Chaser, the mini shuttle built by Sierra Nevada. Could you specify or elaborate why that particular design was not chosen? For example, was it cost, or a political reason, or a time constraint?
Because of the protest, I'm not at liberty to make any comments about commercial crew.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Chuck Black. I'm with New Space Global and Commercial Space. I couldn't help but notice there are an incredible amount of commercial suppliers on the trade show floor. How do you perceive of the role of space businesses in an IAC and with your space programs in the future? They seem to be changing, they seem to be growing. Can you tell me a little bit of the specifics?
Let me take a first shot. We keep talking about what's happening today. It's totally different. I have arguments with my friends from Houston who want to go back to the way it was in Apollo. It is nothing at all like it was in Apollo. When you look at the CubeSats that Marcia referred to that are being spit out of space station, out of the Kibo module on the deployment mechanism, that's not NASA. That is a commercial, that's NanoRacks and other private companies that are doing a lot of this work. And it is facilitating the involvement of students all the way from high school through graduate school. We didn't do that in the Apollo era because we just weren't there yet. International collaboration was not a factor at all in Apollo. Apollo was a battle between the two dominant nations of the world. The battle today is among the commercial companies, in the United States and elsewhere, and that's where it ought to be. As Walt said, we're facilitators. I tell people all the time, our biggest job was to facilitate the success of commercial entry into transportation to low Earth orbit, because we don't do that anymore. We shouldn't be doing that anymore. Guys, what Neil Armstrong and Buzz did gave American industry, who also built the vehicles even back then, it was not NASA, but the beginnings that they gave us now allow American industry and industry around the world to provide transportation at low Earth orbit, so we can go and put government investment into things that are, one, too expensive or too risky for commercial entities to do, like right now, like going to lunar orbit, going back to the surface of the moon, going on to an asteroid, going on to Mars. Our hope, though, is that very soon, the first humans to go back to the surface of the moon will not be just NASA astronauts or some other nation astronaut, but hopefully a commercial entity that wants to go there to do in situ resource development or something like that.
Can I just echo what Charlie has said? And again, I'm the new guy to this business, but the fact is that that when I go coast to coast and I speak to Canadian companies, it is each one of their desire that government is a partner when the risks are high. When the risks are high, they cannot defend their position back to their boards or whatever, and they need that government investment. They need a risk taker. They need government to be the anchor customer to move out. But once they have somewhat of a mature technology, once they brought it down to a medium risk, then they want to move out. And they're in the lead. And it's been that way ever since, just thinking about the discoverers that came across to this country, right behind were the entrepreneurs. And it's going to be the same with regard to space, because the commercial sector can do the business cheaper and frequently faster, and that is exactly why we are where we are.
They're not constrained by the bureaucracy.
Okay, next question.
Right. Hello, Elizabeth Howell from Universe Today. This question is for Administrator Bolden. There was a report in Russian state media a few days ago where Dmitry Rogozin was saying that the Russians wanted to contribute $8 billion to the space station through 2025. So that sort of implies an extension. So I was wondering what the status is of any negotiations with Roscosmos in that regard.
I'm going to tell you what Bill Gerstenmaier told me. He just came back from Russia, and 2025 is the end of their budget cycle. So that's and I got to look at my international relations people over here. My understanding is that's the budget that went into the Duma, just like we're waiting for the 2015 budget to come out of our Congress, which is 1 year. Their budget that they're waiting to come out from the Duma is through 2025. So that's, I am told that's why he said that. You shouldn't read too much into it.
Okay.
Is that good? Okay.
Sorry, I was just told that Charlie will have to leave us in a short time. This is the message that I got. Okay, if you can stay around, wonderful. But I think we have one more question here. And
Thanks. Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now. First of all, a question for the Director General. Do you expect any impacts from the EU sanctions or any other sanctions on Russia on your other projects you have with Roscosmos? I'm thinking about ExoMars and JUICE. And also, can you update us on where you stand for getting the funding required for the 2018 rover? And also a question for Administrator Bolden. I'm not going to ask you why Dream Chaser wasn't selected, but can you say if the protest affects any forward work with your other two partners, SpaceX and Boeing? Do you have to slow down or stop work? Thanks.
I can answer that real quickly, same way I answered the other one. Because of the protest, I can't talk about commercial crew. I'm just not at liberty.
Okay, just to say that on our side, we have no interference with the political situation in our cooperation with Russia. I have not received any guidelines from the member states to restrict the ongoing cooperation, and I have not received any signal from Russia that they plan to restrict their ongoing cooperation with citizens. So we have cooperation on board ISS. The next launch for ESA is Samantha Cristofori to the ISS. And so we cooperation on ISS. We have also cooperation for launching Soyuz from French Guiana, and we have cooperation on ExoMars. And on these three cooperation, we have no indication from the European side or from the Russian side of the restriction concerning these three ongoing cooperation. For what concerns ExoMars, on the 2016 mission, the hardware is now under final assembly, and we should have to deliver the hardware to Russia in autumn next year for a launch in January 2016. And we have received also the NASA package, and we get NASA support for this mission. And for the 2018 mission, we are technically speaking on schedule. But as you know, I am missing money for the 2018 mission, and this will be taken at the next council at ministerial level in December this year. So I hope that I shall be able to complete the funding of the 2018 mission by December this year. That's it, but again, no interference whatsoever for the time being, either from the European side or from the Russian side on the ongoing cooperation.
Okay. So I think this is the last question.
Clive Simpson, Air International magazine. Given the financial constraints and the upcoming ESA ministerial, is it conceivable that there could have to be a choice between Ariane 6 and continuing with the space station?
No, I don't think so. I think that, frankly speaking, I shall be at my 11th council at ministerial level, and I have never started the preparation of the council at ministerial level without financial constraints. So I will say that the financial constraints are there since I am at ESA. And in spite of the financial constraints, the last council at ministerial level were very successful. So I hope that the coming one will be as successful as the previous one. That is number one. Number two, in terms of money, there is the budget necessary for the ISS is smaller than the budget necessary for Ariane 6, and I am not so sure that there is an interference between the two. So I think that I don't think that this will be a choice between ISS and Ariane 6. Myself, I am preparing the two, and I think that the two are necessary to be decided. That's it. So it's not a menu à la carte, it's cheese and dessert.
Hopefully. I think with this, I would like to thank our panelists very much for the answers, and I would like to thank our journalists here for their interest. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the Congress.